Call the meeting to order. And Alderman Jarvis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded and will be available on YouTube when the upload is successful. With that being said, Stacia, would you please complete roll call?
Steve Jarvis.
Here.
Bill Miner. Jim Peterson.
Here.
John Johnson.
Here.
And Stacia, dialing in, we have Dale Householder, Emily Wheeler, Lorena Fries, and we also had one additional participant that joined. Will the individual that just joined the call please identify yourself?
Yeah, it's Gray. I got booted off about a minute ago.
Okay, thanks, Gray. And Gray from the paper.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Agenda item 4, conflict of interest. Are there any conflict of interests with any of the items that are listed on our agenda? Hearing and seeing none, I'll proceed to the consent calendar. Approval of 3/23 agenda, approval of 3/9/2020 meeting minutes, approval of claims, and set hearing for April 13th, 2020 Rico's 148 Main Street, retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine. Any discussion?
On the minutes last weekend, your last meeting, I voted a no on the new hire, and it down as a yes.
Okay.
And then on the claims, like the attorney bills, everything that's for the tip and whatever, is that reimbursable? All the money that goes towards what he's doing on the tip?
Is that reimbursable?
There's a
Yeah,
segment.
so this is Talbot. It should be if you track it separately, and if you look at the project plan, we also built in $1,000 a year even as a go forward if we have other issues, other administrative costs with it.
Okay? And also,
Was that up to 5,000?
Yeah, we did up to $1,000 a year for 5 years. Yeah.
Does that include the charges for the covenants rewrite that you guys were working on?
So we should be able to put that in as a TIF expense. We're going to have to coordinate with the builder as to what order those are going to get caught up in. But I would think, yeah, that was a review for planning, but it was integral to the TIF. So in my opinion, you should include it in as a reimbursable TIF expense. The builder, I believe, in the discussions, if I recall correctly, I don't have my notes in front of me, the reason we did the 5,000 was for annual administrative expenses. He just didn't want to get stacked behind a bunch of expenses. So while we can add that to the TIF, it might be several years out before you're going to recover it.
Yeah. I don't know.
In the future, on some of these billings where there's one here, there was a lengthy email written, and some correspondence. I'm gonna be requesting to see those correspondence and the reason why we're paying this much. I just want to let you know that now.
And
That's the only thing I'd say when you're looking at those, make sure most of it's confidential. So reviewing that confidential and keep it confidential. I'm more than happy to sit down individually with council members and explain charges.
That's the reason why I just let it at the lengthy email. You know, I want to see some of those.
So, and then moving forward in tonight's meeting, is there any reason you need to be on the phone with us tonight besides this conversation we just had?
I have no idea what you're going to cover. So I heard you were talking about the Rapid City ordinance. I didn't know if you wanted any input on that or not, or whether you wanted to have an executive session and talk about some of those issues.
So we have no executive session scheduled for tonight's meeting. I'll leave it up to the council's discretion if you'd like Talbot on the phone for the discussion on the COVID-19 virus. At this point, it's very fluid and moving. I wasn't sure if you had any questions regarding the legality of any of the actions that have been taken. If you, at this point, choose that it's not necessary, I'm sure that Talbot would available himself to us in the event that we needed him. Talbot, would you be available by phone if necessary?
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything where, that, in the past, we haven't had the attorney here unless we thought we needed him.
Okay,
So, since Talbot's gotten on, I don't know if it's the honeymoon period or what, but we're certainly, getting some, I don't even know if we talked to him much last time, so
okay,
if we need him, we need him. If we don't, I don't know that, it was just like in the
I'm
past,
okay,
Yep.
what's that?
okay. So then it's the council consensus that we'll reach out to Talbot as necessary with any questions on any of the further agenda items. Okay? All right, Talbot.
Yeah, so just, I'm assuming, is Brett there then?
Yes, he is.
Okay, I'll just email him my cell phone number
Thank you.
and my direct office line too.
Okay,
All right,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
you bet, bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Alderman Johnson, second Alderman Jarvis. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
Jim Peterson.
No.
John Johnson.
Okay, motion approved, 3-1. I've unmuted the phones, and now moving on to public comment. Members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Seeing none on the phone, there is one in the audience. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Vic Alexander. We're just going to kind of, I don't know exactly how to state it, but kind of apologizing to you guys or to the council. I had put in a request for a change of zoning on properties on Walnut Street and Walnut Avenue, and I didn't go into a lot of detail on a plan. I'm gonna kind of, like say, I apologize for not putting that information in there. I thought it was kind of the plan that I had in mind, is a plan I've been working on for 20-some years. So I thought kind of maybe we knew more about it than that, I'm gonna strive to kind of articulate that plan in an article here coming up, so that we kind of get an idea, or everybody kind of has a feeling of where that plan, where my plan might go. I don't know where it might go, and it's gonna outlive me. So I just thought I'd pass that on, and I apologize for not filling out the application. And I forget that not everybody that's here has not been here for the whole, the 30 years that Johnny Johnson has been, that I've been here too. So I guess that was it for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'll go ahead then and close public comment, and I will enter into action items. Action item 7A, approval of special event application, Run Crazy Horse Marathon, Emily Wheeler, WEM Incorporated. Stacia? Brett?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the annual event for the Run Crazy Horse Marathon. I don't see any changes or additions to the application. It's worked pretty smoothly in the past. We've received the application and the map, and always the insurance coverage for it. And I believe Emily's on the phone. I'll turn it over to her if she'd like to add anything in for us.
Yes, Emily, you have been unmuted, so please feel free to add any detail.
Well, I'm excited that we're going into our 10-year, even in this time, and a lot of major races are setting right on top of it. But I don't have any changes from previous years.
Thank you, Emily. I'll go ahead then and open it up to the council. Council, any questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
No, I'll second.
I have a motion, Alderman Peterson, second Alderman Jarvis. Any comments or questions?
Mayor,
Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
I realize this is a long way out, but since we don't know what's going to happen with the COVID-19, should the motion be approved contingent upon like CDC guidance for gatherings?
So a motion can be submitted in any way. A motion can also include an addendum that references guidance from CDC if you so wish. That being the case, Alderman Minor, are you interested in requesting that that motion be amended, or requesting Alderman Peterson to amend his motion?
Emily?
All I'm saying, no one knows what's going to happen.
Understood.
I understand that. I have a race June 7th with Deadwood, and have went through their commission meeting last week. Obviously, Deadwood and Hill City have a lot of events. That amendment can be there. Certainly, we will be taking all of the guidance from the public officials and all of these health agencies, but I need to be able to move forward with the event and planning right now.
So Emily,
It's not something I can go back and try and throw together in a month because we're okay.
Emily, this is Jim. If we're in this situation, you know, come race time or a month out, obviously you have to make changes that might be forced upon you by our state, our county, or this board. You're probably aware of that, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I have no reason to change my motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Bill Minor,
Yes.
Jim Peterson,
Yes.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Motion approved, unanimous. Action item 7B, approval of special event application, Wine Brew Barbecue, Emily Wheeler, WEM Incorporated.
Again, we have another annual event that occurs towards the latter part of August after the rally. That does include some street closure. Obviously, we've had this event in the past and seems to have run smoothly. Again, we get good coordination with Emily and have the insurance coverage and whatnot to proceed with it. We would recommend staff approval, and I don't know if Emily has more information on this one or not.
I don't have any changes. Last year was my first year helping out with this event. It is still part of the Masons group in Hill City. No changes from last year.
Council, any questions?
So this liability insurance that we have here, Emily, is that for the Run Crazy, or is that for both, or is that?
I think it's going to have to be pending insurance because the National Masons group, I need to have Shane, I had emailed him about it, but the national group needs to send that. So
typically the insurance.
He will do that.
So typically the insurance has come from the Masons?
Yes.
Okay, and that's how it was done last year, so no change in that, and, okay, thank you. Any, no other,
We will get that.
no other significant changes from your cutting your teeth last year?
No.
Thanks, Emily.
I don't remember, in the past, did we have this liability insurance in place before we approved it?
Yeah,
Yes.
we've had it in the past, yes, and it
But
was
we
in
don't-
place. It
but
was
we
in
don't
place
have it
before
yet,
we approved it. Not the Masons one. I don't think I have an updated Masons one.
But we have had it already, we've already had the liability insurance in
Contingent.
place before.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
We've always had
Sure we don't.
insurance coverage on it, yes. I don't know if I have a current one on file. I probably need to get a new one. You know, those insurance, they don't ever run calendar years. Sometimes they start in April, sometimes they start in June. You know, we might get a policy today that is within the coverage, but then they renew, or, you know, the renewal is
Sure.
July to July. We might get a new copy of the insurance before the event even happens. So it's kind of a thing where, you know, it's kind of an evolving thing, but we follow up on that insurance question.
I can assure you I will have the insurance to the city.
Yeah, and you named the city as additional insured per event, right?
We will. Yes.
Mhm. So I'll make a motion to approve this contingent on insurance being brought forward and put in place. Naming the city as additional insured.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the table, Alderman Peterson, second Alderman Jarvis. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Jim Peterson,
Yes.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, so. Yep, thanks.
Action item 7C, approval of special event application, Run for the Rangers, Granite Sports.
So this is one of those events that has been going on for a while, but we've never officially acted on it in the past as being an official special event underneath the conditions of our ordinances. And the reason for that is that they've never in the past requested for anything special. They were using the existing right-of-way. They weren't requesting anything to be closed and running their race. We helped them in the past with like some safety vests and some barricades and stuff, but nothing was ever closed officially. So there was never a need to do a special event permit. So this is the first year that we're doing this. And I know this was submitted by Granite Sports, Pat Wiederhold. One of the outstanding questions that I do have is that insurance question, because it's not in your packet, and I haven't had time to follow up with Pat on it yet. But there should be insurance coverage in place. What they're asking for is a closure on Elm Street to facilitate the event, because it's just grown so big now that it's a substantial event. You know, it was kind of a grassroots thing, and now it's essentially to a point where it needs some more management and more control and more, you know, coordination with the city. So I'm okay with the idea of the closure. We need to get some of these other elements in place, like the insurance. And so going forward, that's really the only thing that we need to gather as far as information. There is just a little bit more coordination I want to do with Pat about the setup of what his event will look like. Now, the event was originally scheduled for March 29th, and because of everything that's going on, the school being out, he's postponed that to April. So, you know, this is one of those events that all the money that's being raised for it goes to scholarship funds, and there's quite a bit of money that's collected. And so it's one of those really local good events that the money stays here. So I think this is going to be a very fluid process of making sure that this can go forward safely and responsibly, given the circumstances we're in right now. So
So not having it as a special event in the past, now that we do that, then we stamp it and we take on liability as a city, which has, been obviously an escalated issue from the past. So do we not do it as a special event or allow it to happen and the city contributes that ability to provide stop signs, invest as a contribution to it, but not endorsing it, thus not pulling the city into it unless they want to get insurance. And insurance might be something that they may or may not want to do.
Right. Yep. So I think there were some concerns last year about the event and people crossing streets safely with traffic going on and with traffic control. And I think that conversation sparked this need to have Elm Street cordoned off. And so I think that's inherently a good idea, to recognize that there needs to be more controls in place. The insurance would be an integral part of that because we're now closing it for their event. So they need to run it, they need to manage it, it's their insurance covering it, but they're covering us for the utilization of it.
Yeah, and who's they? Because it's really kind of a grassroots deal.
Correct.
Granite Sports, so
Yeah.
they're gonna,
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, if we're gonna stamp it, we should follow the same procedure that we do with other special events.
Yeah. So, so just so you know, looking forward in our crystal ball, our next scheduled meeting as of right now is April 13th, and this event is, 6 days later. So, obviously, if you want to table it or continue it, we would work on trying to get that squared away, but we're just approving it like 6 days in advance. We're going to have some discussions later on here in our meeting tonight about depending on all of the other things that are going in the world, the need for us to have other council meetings or special meetings coming up. And that's for us as a group to have that conversation. If a meeting like that happens or occurs, we can sure add this to the agenda at that time. So, I'm open.
So I would suggest we just approve it with a contingent of insurance, and then
Okay.
maybe there's still, it sounds like a date that could be, if there's some other plan that comes into light,
Yeah, I think,
so they can keep moving.
yeah, I think that, like I said, the next council meeting is the 13th, which, you're getting closer and closer to the event. I think there's still things going on in the world that may complicate that date as well. But we just don't know at this point in time. But I think that moving forward, that allows us to move forward and get those things in place before the event happens.
If we put the contingency that they have insurance and they don't get insurance, would it go as a special event or just as a grassroots?
It would have
Change
to,
over to a
yeah,
grassroots
I would
thing.
if that's a contingency or requirement of the approval, it would go back to the grassroots effort. But I don't know that that is what would happen.
Sure.
The reality of it is that the event would probably still occur. You would still have some challenges with safety without some better planning, maybe, so to speak.
Sure.
So,
So, I certainly don't have any issues with the event. It's just that once we start stamping it, we start owning it.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
It's, and they know any shortcomings as far as safety, they can go in and start on right now.
right.
Even if it goes as stamped or not.
Yep. Well, if you approve it with that contingency tonight, I'll work with Pat and make that happen. If it doesn't happen, they won't get the event permit, and they'll have to do the grassroots effort. They've done that for years before, so.
Yeah, and they've made that work and stuff, so I don't think it'll be a fatal thing to them.
Correct.
But I don't see on here where they're asking for Elm to be closed.
Yeah, I thought there was
Maybe I'm missing
Pat stopped in the other day, and I thought he had left a map or something in here, but
Maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see it. He'll see.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I don't remember seeing that.
well, from my conversation with Pat, I know he wants to close down
part of Elm Street for the event.
Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
I again raise the concern of the CDC guidance right now. And here we're talking about an event that would bring hundreds of people in close contact in the community in the middle of a pandemic. I don't see how in good faith the city can endorse this in light of our discussion that's going to be on COVID-19 and the city of Rapid City passing an ordinance to close businesses and things. Their parks are already closed. So while I support the Run for the Rangers and I always donate and get a t-shirt, I don't always show up to run, but I just don't know how the city could possibly endorse this application right now.
Well, currently we don't have any city, and your point is well taken because this is around the corner where the other ones are in the fall. So there's a lot of unknown with time, but on this one, and at this moment, maybe this should have been tabled till the end of our meeting till we have the conversation on the item D. I think is where that's coming in, is it? Is that?
I would support moving this to after our discussion item because I think that's a very, very good idea, Alderman Peterson.
So from a timing perspective, I don't know that our discussion is really gonna have that much impact on this because there is gonna be a difference of time. We don't know what's gonna happen, so.
I mean, if we don't have a policy, if we're planning on setting a policy,
It might not go all the way through the 19th though. So it might be shorter term than that for now. It might continue out through that, unless that policy continues out past the 19th, depending on what the council choices. So, I mean, we can,
when are we planning on talking about this? What part of this?
as a
meeting?
discussion item,
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, hey, thank you.
That's not action.
it's not an action item.
Mhm.
And we'll explain why that fell that way as well.
Do you have a motion, Bill?
I would feel more comfortable talking about this event after our discussion and the city decides on a path forward if we're going to be joining Rapid City in restricting gatherings and so forth. And so, I would move that we discuss this after the COVID-19 discussion item
So,
and come to a consensus on which way the city's going to go.
Okay,
Can we move an action item like that?
we can do that, right?
well,
Yeah,
in
you're
this
just taking
situation-
things out of order, that's fine.
Yeah. So we'll move action item 7A after action item 8A.
Let's say it one more time.
Discussion.
7C, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
7C will come right after 8A.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Action item 7D, Personnel Policy Manual, proposed language addition for EIAB leave during health crisis. I don't think it's necessary to discuss this after the discussion item. So you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
address it?
So, so this is kind of a moving target. In your packet, you received this Families First Response Act, and it's from another attorney within the Gunderson Palmer Law Firm. And it's kind of a quick read on what the federal government is doing to provide family leave, additional family leave, and additional sick leave for companies and businesses and entities that are under, I believe, 500 employees. And so I say this is a moving target because I have this document in front of me. I actually have what I believe to be is the original bill that was in Congress here. I have other entities' amendments that they've done within their own HR world to try to address this. And then Stacia handed me a new handout today that actually, yeah, there's another one that's from the U.S. Congress. That actually, each document in my mind says a little bit something different, okay? So I'm gonna ask you to probably table this item, but we need to talk about it, at least get the taste or the flavor of it. So what I can tell so far is that the federal government wants all employees in corporations or companies under 500 people the ability to take 2 weeks, essentially 80 hours off for sick leave, so that everybody has a balance of sick leave. So it's 80 hours. So what will happen is that that'll be a mandate from the federal government, and it'll be reimbursable by the federal government. So it's a program that we'll administer and that will get reimbursed. So our thought is to piggyback this 80-hour program within our extended illness accrual bank that we currently have with our own employees, of adding that 80 hours into that system and then creating a set of rules as to how they can access it. The problem is that we're still waiting for clarification on those rules from the federal government as to the appropriate accessing of them. And so I'm going to pass this out, and it's just a very, and I'll read it because this is a very simple draft of how we would affect it. So the gist of it is, and I'm sorry, Bill, you don't have a copy of this. This was kind of a last-minute addition to things, but
We'll get you one after the call, Bill.
yeah. So that
Thank you.
the first part, A through E, is what currently is on our extended illness accrual bank. Item F is the one that I've added, and essentially it says, in the event of a health emergency as declared by these public entities, that our employees can access their extended illness accrual bank. And it's declaring that it's 80 hours of city time that will be added, that this amount is not subject to the maximum accrual balance rate, and that's of 720 hours. So if you already had 718 hours and you were 2 hours away from hitting your max, that wouldn't limit it. You could exceed it with this because it's a federal mandate. And this is where, and then that next bullet point is where it gets a little convoluted with the feds. It can be accessed if you've been diagnosed and need to be quarantined, somebody you care for has been quarantined, if you're taking care of a family member, also with child care issues, if the school is closed or whatnot, then you can access it. So these are all being clarified, these last 4 bullet points. And that's the part that we're not quite sure where all of it lands, okay? So these are going to be federally mandated things, but it appears that there's also an element in here that this isn't just a one-time deal, that this is an ongoing requirement that everybody will have for an emergency like this going forward. Now, there is another element where it's just related to this COVID crisis right now, and I'll get into that in a minute. So we're still learning about this. Like I said, Stacia just got something in the email today. We had this other thing from the city attorney's office. It's an evolving thing, and I think we're going to be able to address it here in the coming weeks so that we can get it on the books. Regardless of what our personnel policy manual says, if it's mandated by the federal government, we're going to have to do it. I just want a clear understanding of what it is we're being asked to do. Now, there's another element to the federal act that they adopted in here, and that's part of the Family Leave Act, which provides for another 80 hours of time. And that talks about another set of circumstances in which you can access that. The way I'm reading it and understanding it is that that program is actually administered by the Social Security Administration, and that there's actually a online, it sounds like, application form that the employee would have to apply for it. They would take the time off with us. They would have to apply for the time with us and get approval to get off. And then they would get reimbursed through the federal government directly through the Social Security Administration. Beyond that 2 week of time, then there's another provision in the Family Leave Act that they're adjusting that allows for up to 12 weeks of leave at a reimbursement rate of up to 2/3 of your wages. I think that's right. With a maximum set limits. It's like $511 per day, or once you hit a certain threshold, it's like $200 a day. So there's a lot going on in all of these numbers, and a lot of different sources I'm hearing things, and there's a lot of confusion as to what we're supposed to do. And meanwhile, we've got, I'm sure that everybody out there who is an employer has employees, there are conversations that people are scared, that they're being exposed to things potentially that we just don't know exist yet. I know we really don't have that many cases in South Dakota yet, but the other part is we don't know who hasn't been tested, who is out there that has it. And so this tries to address all of that, especially with the school being closed, that there's daycare needs that aren't being fulfilled. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 kids at home unattended by an adult that are kind of making their way. So this is an evolution of things, and I was hoping to have something more concrete to present to you tonight so that we could adopt it and be compliant with the feds, but there's still confusion as to what the expectation is.
Because
So-
along with getting reimbursed, it also reimburse our insurance too. Is tied into that
Right,
with the federal government.
our health insurance.
So even if they're taking the time off, we're still gonna get recovered for that portion of the time that they're off.
So this is something we're going to be working on and get some clarity. I know that there's been a lot, I think every day last week and today, there were various dial-in conference calls going on at the state level, federal level, with city people, with attorneys and whatnot, trying to figure out a lot of the evolution of what's going on in the world. This is one of those items, and as soon as we get more information, we can set the policy in place and get it to you. So, are there any questions that you have related to it? At the end of the day, these are federally mandated programs that you really don't have a choice in complying with, but you do have the choice of how you want that wording to be placed within the policy manual.
Is there a time frame when we have to have it done?
The last I heard is that this system is supposed to be active either April 2nd or 3rd, so employees can't use it yet. It's not available to them.
So is it something that has to be done before our next meeting if it's not?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, and that's why I referenced earlier in this meeting that there may be a need for us to adopt things prior to the next meeting. We've got a situation where we've got a 5th Monday of the month, so there's no P&Z, no council next Monday. And so that puts us 3 weeks out from our next meeting, which is a lot of time. I mean, things I know today, I didn't know Thursday of last week. And things I knew on Thursday, I didn't know, before that, there was a lot of change. So that's why I'm saying we need to be kind of fluid in adopting some of these things, but it's either April or 2nd or 3rd of when this would come online, officially through the feds.
And we don't have to have an emergency meeting on a Monday. We can have it anytime.
Correct,
So,
yeah, we just need to get us all in on the loop get the agenda out, put it together, get, the paperwork where it needs to be and adopt it, so. Okay, so are there any questions? I know that's kind of a nebulous thing. I wish I had more and better information, but that's the gist of the program. There's a sick leave element, and then there's a family leave element to it. And they need, the whole idea is that they work together, they're complementary to one another to give people significant ability to feel like they can stay at home and still get paid. There's even an element there that's not just for full-time employees, there's also provision for part-time employees as well. So we're not the only one that is having to, work through this. Private companies are all gonna have to manage this as well, so. Anyway, that's all I have. I would just ask that we table it, or just continue it to our next, I would continue it to the next meeting where it's on the agenda.
Or emergency meeting, whichever one's on first.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, could you clarify, Alderman Johnson, is that a motion to table as recommended? John, is that a
Yes.
motion to table? So Alderman Johnson has a motion to table as recommended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Jarvis. Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Bill Miner,
Yes.
Jim Peterson,
Yeah.
John Johnson,
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Action item 7E, Water Reservoir Project, authorization to construct railroad crossing.
So, I have a handout for this as well that didn't make your packet because I just received this today.
Does Alderman Minor have this?
Probably not.
Alderman Minor, you'll receive this after the meeting.
So, and I will read it so that you're up to speed on everything. So at our last meeting, we had talked about moving forward with the crossing as related to our water reservoir project. And I had an old price quote. It was for $9,800 to do the crossing. This updated price quote is at $10,500 to do the crossing, and I'll read through it. The company that the Black Hills Central Railroad has used in the past, the name of it is Balfour Beatty, and you'll notice that there's a different name on the top of the letterhead. Well, since the time I received that old price quote till the time of this new one, that company has been bought out, shifted, whatever. It's still the same track people who work on the Central Railroad, just a different company name. Dear Mr. McMacken, American Track is pleased to provide you this quote to install a new access crossing at the Black Hills Central Railroad tracks. The scope of work is to mobilize crews and equipment to job site, supply and install 10 each new 9-foot cross ties in location where new crossing will be installed, secure new ties to rail using new spikes as necessary, install new ballast, owner supply, tamp and regulate to secure ties in track. Number 3, install new owner supplied crossing planks, supply and install new crossing lags to secure the planks and track. The total cost for this project is $10,500. This work will be scheduled during the spring before the train startup, weather permitting. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns. So there's 2 items within that language that we need to provide. One is the ballast and one is the planks. Those we actually will get from the train. That price, the previous price I had on that is $2,000 for all of that. I need to refresh that price quote with the train because I haven't had a chance to yet. And so I would estimate that right now we're looking at $12,500 for the total work to be done. When I spoke with this Von Oxner with American Track, he said that this work, the work that he's scheduled with the train is the week of the 20th. And so once he's done with all of the train maintenance work, he would work on our crossing that next week or at the end of his work with the train. He says he's got quite a laundry list of things to get done with the train. So he didn't give me an exact time.
That's April 20th that they're gonna start?
Yeah.
And ours would be done the last week of April.
Yeah, it would probably be that. Yeah, he said he probably had at least 5 days of work for the train. It sounds like he's gonna get started like the 20th, weather permitting.
Okay.
And then it would be like the 27th, they would get started on ours. In my prior quote, and I don't have a copy of that one with me, but in my discussion with Lon, this is something that they can build in a day. This isn't a major, I mean, they do this kind of stuff all the time. So that was what he communicated to me, is like, this could be done in a day, depending on weather again, maybe 2 days. So they're already gonna be here, there's no other mobilization issues and whatnot. And it would be the first piece to get into place for that, you know, moving forward on the bigger construction of the tank, so.
An opening weekend was moved to May 16th.
Right, so we've got a bigger window. I don't know if you saw I think Meg Warder sent out an email or a release saying that they're starting a week later, given all of the virus things that are going on. So we definitely have,
16th?
Yes.
we definitely have a time frame to work within that shouldn't be a problem, so.
Now, at this point in time, I think it would be prudent to mention the fact that because of what's happening with the virus and those impacts that are associated with the economy, we don't know what impact that's going to have on anything. So when it comes to work that we have scheduled out in the future, projects that we're looking at, we are going to need to take a look at that. I bring that up because it not only is our responsibility to take a look at what we have scheduled out, but it also may impact loans that we have and the ability that we have to trigger those things. Even though those are things that we need to consider in the future, the crossing needs to be built. And in the hopes that the virus is something that does resolve itself, that doesn't impact us in such a way that it's devastating and we aren't able to proceed with these things, the window to complete this crossing is something that I would recommend the council highly considers taking advantage of. If we miss the window of opportunity to do it during this weekend, the only other downtime that you have from the train's perspective is sometime during the October timeframe, which is when I believe she comes down for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And at that point in time, then you're really kind of pushing any construction, if possible, really out until the next year. So while we would be pulling this out of the project itself, the funding for this project is by way of loan. So it's money that we're going to owe anyway, although in a different form. If we do take money that has been allocated to this project historically, that we've saved up in funds, it is money that we're going to pay, and having the ability to have this crossing done will allow us to be able to start the build anytime we need to and not be sensitive of the train's run schedule as if we were having to build the crossing itself. So I just wanted to make sure that we had that in our mind as you consider that for approval or not approval of this request.
That'd be more with mobilization fees, I would guess.
I would think so as well.
Might as well get it done now.
So any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the, let's see, the construction of the railroad crossing.
Alderman Jarvis with a motion on the floor to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, since we don't know the cost of a component here, do we want to put up to a number? Just get it done, not worry about it?
So the estimate that was put on the table was $2,000 for the planks, bringing the estimated total $12,500.
I think Brett
That's
said
that's an old estimate.
yeah, that's
Correct.
an old estimate, so
The other one was 7% more. Whatever, I mean, I don't know.
So-
So Alderman Jarvis,
Would there be a
to-
number that would make it go, oops? Not really. I'm just throwing it out there since we don't have a complete bid.
I mean, well,
There shouldn't be. I mean, I can't, the train is gonna supply the planks and the ballast. I mean, those are things that are special and unique to their operation, and they've got their supply. I can't imagine that it would be that much, if it were to be higher, that it would be that much higher.
So if you-
we're looking at what, 12,500?
Double it, just in case, or?
Double the 2,000?
Yeah.
Sure.
say put a max of 15,000.
Max 15?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, if you want to
I
put
mean,
not to
that would-
exceed,
Not
You
to
know,
exceed.
Yeah, not to exceed 15,000 would definitely cover it.
Cost is estimated not to exceed 15,000.
you good with?
Yeah,
Substitute.
I'm good with that, yeah.
Substitute motion. Cost not to exceed 15,000. Motion Alderman Jarvis, second Alderman Johnson. Roll call vote, please.
Jim Peterson,
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion approved.
Thank you.
Moving into discussion item 8A. So, gentlemen, this appears as a discussion item rather than an action item. And a lot of it has to do with timing. So, over the last couple of weeks, as an organization, we have been following the COVID virus and the incidents and the unraveling of this on a daily basis. As a city entity and from an operations perspective, we have been following this very, very closely in conversations that have been happening. A lot of activity has occurred actually just over the past couple of days relative to some decisions that have been made and impacts that it's going to directly have on our community. Had those decisions been made before the agenda came out, this might have appeared as an action item rather than a discussion item, but that's just not the way this fell. So initially, as we started to address the COVID and the conversations that were happening, as a city, we reached out to various members of the community and started to look at a preparedness phase. So many of you may have heard things that were done as a community, understanding how we could address the needs of our community, and effectively had been doing so. As the virus continued to spread and there was more of an outbreak that was reached, more discussion and more information from the governor. As of last Saturday, there was a conversation that I understood to occur at the county level, at which time the county commissioners were at a point where they had not been on board with any type of closures as we had seen in other portions of the country. Again, the spread rate wasn't really as high, although we had seen some cases in Beetle County. They were confined to that county. However, that was giving rise to potential community spread, or the categorization of community spread. To, I believe, everyone's surprise, including the commission, or including our county, there was a press release or a press conference scheduled for yesterday with the city of Rapid City that announced a emergency council meeting that occurred last night at 6 o'clock with the city of Rapid City. During that press conference, as well as what was covered later in the council meeting, and I don't know if any of you had the chance to observe it, but I tuned in myself and watched it live stream. There was discussion and a lot of personal opinion that was shared from a lot of the residents of the city with regard to shutdown of businesses and restaurants and the rest of the community. Up until that point in time, the governor had urged that businesses take steps to change their business models. So I had been in contact with many of our restaurants in our town. There have been a lot of things that have been done to change their business models. In fact, some of our restaurants have gone to curbside services, changes in their models, not providing any type of dine-in services. And in light of yesterday's announcement and actions that the city of Hill City, or the city of Rapid City are taking, they're going to one end of the extreme and are entertaining an ordinance to, in essence, shut down dine-in services and limit the community gathering places. The path for that, bless you,
Excuse me.
the path for that they have chosen to take is by ordinance, and Brett has some information that he's gathered that will reference the law that they are utilizing to exercise that authority and do it. We did have a conversation today to look at this from a smaller community level. As being smaller communities, we were not consulted or did not have the opportunity to have these discussions. But we do understand that it is being addressed from a county perspective, so some of those areas that don't fall within a city jurisdiction, they are being addressed on the county level. We do understand that other communities such as ourselves, like Custer Keystone, they are having the same discussions we are, and they are entertaining what they're doing as cities in order to address this. I've been back and forth, and this has been a very difficult time for anybody in any city. And regardless of my personal opinions or my personal feelings on what's happened, we as a city and you as representatives of the city need to take a hard look at this and decide how we as a city need to address this. I think we need to have a really strong conversation tonight to determine our path forward with this. We do have community members and business owners that are strongly impacted by this. We do have folks that are being good citizens and that are doing things in order to ensure that there is not a spread. I do understand the economics of our community. And in my view at this point, it's not a question of economics versus health. I mean, we're at a situation where there's a plan that's been put on the table. And we need to look at how we work together in order to make sure that we address this health concern. We are at a pandemic level. I'd ask Brett to provide us with some information that he has and some options that we have as a community to be able to address this. When he referenced a little bit earlier a special meeting, those are discussions that we need to have. I'm not in any position where I wish to put any additional burden on the people of our city by having to have any special meetings, but depending on what the council decides as a whole tonight, we may need to look at how we enact our next steps and our next moves and what the right thing for us to do as a city is. So Brett, if you can kind of go over some of the information that you've pulled relative to the authority and how things are being enacted and some of the options that we have with the city, then I'd really like to hear from the council some dialogue on their thoughts and how the best way for us to address this as a community would be.
So just before Brett does that, you said there's a plan on the table. Is that, are you referring to the Rapid City?
That's the
one?
Rapid City plan.
That's what you meant by that.
Exactly,
Not
right.
that
We
we
don't
don't
have
a
anything.
plan
No,
on the
we
table.
don't. I have some, in speaking with the county today, I've got the sense that there's an overwhelming desire, and there's a lot of these type of meetings and special sessions happening with councils, and they are proceeding further with ordinances of their own to address what they feel is the direction that they need to go in. So we can share that with you. Brett also we spoke with Dustin Willett, so go ahead, Brett.
Thank you, Mayor. So just quickly, the county had a special meeting, I believe it was on Saturday, and the end result, I haven't watched the video because I don't think it's posted, and I didn't see it, I didn't stream it, but the gist of it was we want to keep business as usual, but with a watchful eye, is how I'm taking it, and that's from our discussion with Dustin Willett today, of saying, look, we're going to have a measured response to the world around us as it happens and try to keep ahead of it, but not get too far ahead of ourselves that we're enacting things too quickly that are harming us in the short term, and maybe long-term solutions that make sense, but maybe not so much in the short term. Then the mayor said, Mayor Kathy said that, Rapid City had a press conference yesterday and a late meeting last night. I think they had 2 hours of public comment of the pros and cons of this document that's before you. And again, this meeting is not to just say, hey, lockstep, we want to do this. We know from prior experience, whether it's with zoning codes or building codes or any other legislation that you adopt, that there's no one cookie cutter document that works for every community in South Dakota. Hill City has its own unique needs and challenges that Rapid City doesn't have. But conversely, they have a lot of the same problems we do, they just have a bigger population. Okay? So ultimately, I don't want to focus so much on the procedural aspect of it, whether it's an ordinance or resolution, just a proclamation, those kinds of things. That's why we have staff here to figure all of those things out, and that's why we have a city attorney to figure those out. There's obviously benefits to one of those, doing some over another. We can help work on those, but really I want to talk to you tonight about what authority is granted to you as a common council by the state, and really get into what your feelings are of specific things you would like to do, if anything, to help guide this discussion or come up with your own set of regulations that will help move us forward through this event, okay? The challenge is that with something like this, we need to be fairly specific with our direction, because you might, some of this in the Rapid City document is fairly wide sweeping, and it may include some businesses that you didn't intend to include. Okay, we have the luxury of living in and working in a community that's fairly small. We kind of know what businesses are out there and open right now and what services that they provide. And maybe we can provide a document that's supportive of the efforts of the social distancing and not, doing anything to harm the spread of the COVID-19 situation, but yet recognizing that there are businesses out there that, they're lucky if they get 4 customers a day. And so they're not going to be exceeding this group of 10 situation. Our meeting tonight is bringing a group of 10-ish people together in one spot for a duration of time and in close proximity to one another. So these aren't ideal to have these like this. So we need to get into the specifics of what our concerns are and what we would propose to do about it. But that's a discussion for us to have tonight and see where we want to move forward. This is kind of a template for us to start that conversation. Now, Rapid City drew this up as an ordinance, so they're going to be voting again on this on Friday. And it is scheduled to take effect, I believe, 7 p.m. on Friday evening, and be in effect till April something. There's some different dates in here. It's like a 60-day window, and then April is mentioned in here. But in their ordinance, they reference South Dakota Codified Law 9-29-1, and I'm just going to read it. It's not that long. Territorial jurisdiction of municipalities. Every municipality shall have power to exercise jurisdiction for all authorized purposes over a territory within the corporate limits and over any public ground or park belonging to the municipality, whether within or without the corporate limits, and in and all over places except within the corporate limits of another municipality within 1 mile of the corporate limits, or of any public ground or park belonging to the municipality outside the corporate limits, for the purposes of promoting health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, and of enforcing its ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. And that's the only code section that they reference. Again, that's 9-29-1. I did a little bit of research over the weekend. I was trying to follow along with their logic of how Rapid City put that together. Again, that's something that we do as staff to try to figure that out. I actually came upon another code section within state law. It's 9-32-1, and it's the promotion of health and suppression of disease And this actually gets more specifically to the pandemic that we're dealing with, or the situation we're dealing with right now. That code says, every municipality shall have power to do what may be necessary or expedient for the promotion of health or the suppression of disease. Okay? So that, to me, targets this more closely. But I think both of them in combination essentially ensure or give you clear direction that you do have some authority in here in addressing this, even though we don't regulate safety within restaurants and we don't inspect them and whatnot. There is kind of a bigger umbrella we're dealing here of this falls outside of just a restaurant serving safe food. This is a bigger moment than that. Now, since yesterday, we've had a lot of chatter on the finance officer listserv, which is just kind of a blog or an email that's been going on. We've also had chatter on the city administrator blog throughout the state about different communities adopting a similar ordinance or resolution to address their community's wants, needs, and desires from the council. A lot of them just kind of cut and paste. They use something like this, cut and paste, change the names and whatnot. Some of them have identified both of these code sections that I referenced. So it's good that somebody else is doing some research out there, and we're not just accepting what some other city has done. We're doing some work on our own to figure out what's special and unique and right about our world. So I think there's a lot of good information in here. It covers a lot of ground, and obviously we don't have that many businesses within our community. But I think there has to be at least, even if you don't adopt something, there has to be at least this conversation of where do you want to start and where can this go and what your concerns are for the community. So that's about all I have right now.
They don't,
Oh, good.
they don't have to publish this after Friday?
So,
Says it goes in effect Friday night.
so what happens is they will still have to, they adopted it, the first reading yesterday. The second reading will be on Friday. They still have to publish it. The way that they've written it is that it will go into an emergency effect essentially on Friday after they take the vote on it. There's kind of the implied assumption that it will pass, and then they take it from there, and they've kind of put in there that they have the ability to extend it if necessary through council action. Getting into kind of the process a little bit, I don't know that Rapid City used the best process in order to affect this. They used an ordinance which requires the 2 readings and whatnot. In these code sections I read from the state, it says nothing that you're required to adopt an ordinance. I think this is something that you probably do through resolution, which still provides for the publication of it. You definitely want to conduct a hearing. Everything was done very quickly in Rapid. A lot of people didn't know about it, and a lot of people found out late and were showing up to the meeting late and whatnot. It was kind of an interesting process because you had people watching on YouTube on their phones but driving to the event so they could do public comment. So I think process-wise, if we're interested in this, we definitely need to put the word out there of any action that we're proposing to take, set a clear and consistent agenda, probably in the format of a resolution, make this our own document, and have a little bit more, I would say, transparency or procedural awareness, in the adoption of it. And again, I'm not promoting that anything is adopted. I'm saying if we do it.
And we can add to, on a regular basis if needed to, correct?
Yeah, and that's the thing about like ordinances. Once you start locking in dates and times and whatnot, it really gets touchy of how you can amend those dates and times and whatnot. With resolution, you have a much easier mechanism to adjust those things going forward. And so you can, to me, it's more fluid that you can react appropriately to the data and the situation that you're in. I'm watching the CD or the South Dakota Department of Health website every day for updates specific to our state with testing, what pending tests are, how many cases there are, where they're at. I talked to Dustin Willett last week, talked to him this week, talked to him the week before, and asking him questions about things that he's aware of and can tell us about not only the local picture, but the statewide picture as well, because he's got access to things that I don't. And so, doing those conference calls and whatnot, you learn quite a bit. I mean, the president's on every single day now, I think, pretty much. And just being aware of what's going on around us. So,
I would think it'd be best to do something besides nothing in case we do need something, resolution. you said.
yeah, and we could prepare something that we had in our
Whether they
hip
use it
pocket
or
that
not.
we could trigger fairly quickly. And maybe that's the best option, that you've got a resource there that if the time comes, you can quickly put it into place, and that there's not much debate about it, so to speak.
And it changes so much every day. They say this week should be terrible.
Well, it's probably changing hourly.
It's-
This morning, Dustin had a quick meeting that, for a lot of the communities, and we were one of 3 that weren't there. But we do have a town board member from Keystone, Quinn, that was on that call, and they just had their meeting at 3 today. So Quinn, would you like to share what you
Yeah, that's kinda
come
right.
up here and introduce yourself, and then let us know what you guys kind of talked about from the Keystone. One of the things is if one community does something, I mean, it's silly we got to be cohesive, I think, or
Right.
it doesn't work if you're going to try to do something.
So Quinn from Keystone, and we just had our kind of public input from businesses over in Keystone. And you guys are aware the governor just signed an executive order on bars and restaurants? Okay, so we got that during our meeting. So basically what we did was pass a resolution to basically follow the CDC guidelines and the governor's executive order, because we were looking at ordinance or resolution, and I don't think anybody was at the point where we want to force anybody to close or anything like that, but at least be on record that Keystone, hey, we're following CDC guidelines and we're aware of the governor's order. So, and Custer, I talked to them and they're kind of looking at the same thing. So that's why I wanted to come over, just because I think Keystone, Hill City, and Custer are kind of similar in this, and so, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And one of the things Quinn mentioned on that is it's sort of a bottom-up mentality.
That's the
I'll let him
difference
explain
here.
that.
Is like Dustin on the call today and at the governor's level, they're more or less waiting for local communities to make decisions versus the county passing some blanket rule. Because that was my question. I said, if Keystone and Hill City look at closing bars and restaurants, is the county going to leave them open in the county? So they said, no, we're probably going to follow suit with what the cities do. So it's an opposite process of normal, is coming from the bottom up instead of the top down. So.
Yeah, so I got notification of that when I got here, so the call was already over because I wasn't here this morning, and he sent it to Brett's old email. So,
Yeah, I think he said he sent it out last night.
yeah, he said it was pulled together quickly. So
Yeah.
Dustin, we did talk to Dustin
Good.
today,
Yeah.
and he prefaced us on what was happening there. And, so I agree, because I said, well, why didn't, so first of all, you talk to towns that were 5,000 and more, but we're 25 miles away from Rapids. So why wasn't this cohesively done, right? We would have worked a lot smoother if we would have all been on the same page. It didn't happen that way. And how many restaurants do you have open now, right? Barley's, that's it,
Well,
right?
we have 3.
You have 3. Okay, we don't have a lot either, but I've got out on either side 3 or 4, right? So those are county. How do you control those? And Dustin said that they were looking at the county level, what they were going to do in order to control those. But I can tell you that a lot of them have already self-managed, just like a lot of yours within your town. Well then, if we say, well, they're self-managing, you really don't have anything that you've gone and done from an official perspective, right?
At least be on record. And let's
Exactly.
say the governor's order kind of solves the bar and restaurant. I mean, that's cut and dry in her executive orders. The bars and restaurants are
And
closed.
take in the casinos, Deadwood as well.
Deadwood closed down today on the
Yeah,
casinos.
yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
And that's the issue, right? The comment from Deadwood was we saw Gillette block to Deadwood because Gillette's closed, so.
Right.
It's defeating the purpose of,
So that executive order, I just read it like hour ago-ish. I know it talks about bars, most of it is just reflecting, hey, I support the CDC recommendations of this, that, and the other thing. Does it actually ban or close bars and whatnot?
I'm not a
Because I
lawyer.
skimmed through that and I didn't know that I got that
Message out of it?
message out of it.
Well, if you're a business that's unable to abide by the 10-person rule,
Mhm.
then she's saying you need to close unless you can modify that, but
Okay.
how do you modify it?
Yeah, like I said, I just had a chance to just skim through it. I'm
So,
reading a whole bunch of stuff.
so for our purpose of the conversation, and Quinn, thanks for showing up
Mhm.
and telling us, you know, our only control, if whatever control that might be, is Hill City.
Right.
So we really just need to focus on that,
Right.
kind of see what, you know, some of these sister communities are doing, and then say, because if it is a bottom-up deal and they're looking to the communities to make the decision and then they're gonna follow suit. But like I'm tried to make some calls today and, you know, like the Alpine, they went to curb only
They went to
service.
curb only,
So,
exactly.
and so what they're doing is on a week-to-week basis, trying to, you know, this might change that, you know what I mean? But I think that's what, at the very least, we should be doing a week-to-week basis, because this thing is fluid, it's changing by the hour.
Yep.
And, you know, if we had a communication that went out to the public, you know, on a Thursday, so that, you know, if something were to change and as this goes and this goes away, we can be positive and move, you know, and staying on top of it. But that would be my interjection in terms of the communication piece, getting that out, you know, the places where people congregate in bigger, you know, closing like Lorena's place, that doesn't make any sense to me necessarily. I mean, you know, get 2 or 3 or 4 people coming in there. Does that, I don't know, I guess restaurants where people hang out and bars and stuff like that.
So, but you also have to look at the other side of it too, and I know that we have Lorraine on the phone, I'd like to hear from her, but, but you also have the other side of the coin. So we've had people that live in infected areas, but hey, we're close, so we just want to go out and drive, and well, we'll drive up to Hill City because they have gift shops that are open and they have stores that are open. So when you have those facilities that are open, you open yourself up for other things. So you got to look, and I'm not saying that we need to close them, I'm just saying that you kind of have to look at the whole picture. Lorena, I kind of invited you for comment without finding out if you were really wanting to make a comment. Would you like to comment?
I don't have a problem with it. For a majority of this time of year, I don't have a problem with it because there's not more than 10 people in my store at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
However, on Saturday afternoon, I had like 20 people in my store all of a sudden for a short period of time. 4 of them were from Huron.
Yeah.
You know, that made me a little nervous. But,
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's where, you know, I'm hearing that too. So I heard that from another business owner in the community who kind of took the I need to shut down because I'm not comfortable with being open and being a place where these people can come to. And we actually started to have those conversations internally when it came to something like, do we keep our bathrooms open, right, at the parks? Do we keep our parks open? Well, you would hope that they're available for our residents, but now then it becomes a place that's attractive because Rapids closed. So all of Rapids parks are closed. Well, people are going to wander. Not only do we have a supply of groceries, so they come for that, but you know, they're going to come up for other things. And while I understand that is a part of our economy and we are that town that we want people to come to, are we opening it up? And again, I'm not saying that I'm advocating either way. I just want to put those facts on the table so we make the informed decisions that we need to make. We're in April, and yeah, we do want those businesses that are open off season, but do we really look at it from a, we need to be smart for 2 weeks and, you know, take that hit for those 2 weeks instead of taking it for 2 months when our season should be booming.
I got a question.
Right.
Lorraine, this is Steve.
Yeah.
How hard would it be for you to kind of police how many people are in your store at a time and kind of say, look, guys, they're standing here now, can you wait to come in?
If I had a full staff at this point in time, it would probably be pretty easy because I could put somebody at the front door and run the cash register at the same time. When I'm in the store by myself and I'm ringing somebody up and a party of 8 comes in, that's a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
And I did find it interesting that when I had the Saturday afternoon, when I had people coming in, virtually everybody was from someplace else. They were from Wyoming, they were from Nebraska, they were from North Dakota. They were there from states that had shut down.
Yeah.
And they were kind of calling BS on the whole entire, this isn't anything worse than the flu. And so they're like, we just decided, we're tired of sitting at home, so we're going to come to Hill City because we know you guys are open. Which is a great thing as far as economically is concerned. But if those 4 ladies from Huron brought me the coronavirus, then all of a sudden our town isn't safe either.
Thanks, Lorena. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Standing for tourists going to Mount Rushmore too.
Thanks, Quinn.
Schools being out,
Thank you.
people off work, they're vacationing early.
So,
So then there's that other side of, okay, so you make a statement and maybe you go bold on this, let's just say, and that nobody's saying they have the right answer because there is no right answer.
there is none, and we don't know.
But if you go bold and say, hey, we did this and, this thing curves and goes the right direction, from that marketing standpoint, when we reopen, keep Hill City, shut it down, kept it, out of here, or whatever you want to say, that it might be received better when this thing turns around.
We don't know. At the end of the day, we don't know. And even if we do this, we don't know if what we did. I don't know that we're ever going to know, But I can tell you that if everyone around us does something different than what we do, not that we have to keep up with the Joneses, but what that'll mean is it's going to push everything our way. So you're opening up your exposure if you're the only one there. Is that such a bad thing? Maybe no.
Well, I think we have the opportunity not keeping up with the Joneses, but being the Joneses.
Exactly.
I mean,
and to me, that's more working together
Yeah.
to make sure that we're all doing the same thing, and that's really, so, Eggy, we've got another, come up to the front, please, and your name.
Daniel McNamara, 125 Main Street. Since I've been here for I've been coming up here since I was a little kid. Hill City's always been kind of a leader. Seems like other communities look up to us. And if it's the right thing to do, maybe we should do something. And I've shut my hotel down just because everybody's canceled clear in the end of May pretty much for me. So we're going to super clean and do everything we can do, but as long as it's super slow anyway. I was talking to some of the representatives from the Republican Party today, and I'm like, guys, since we're dead anyway, with all due respect to Lorena, if we're going to do something, do it now. I don't want to see us change something in the middle of April, or, Kristi Noem came out and basically said it's going to last into June today, which really upset me because I hope she doesn't put a nail in the rest of our summer because it's struggling right now. And I've talked to other business owners, I talked to Calvin and stuff today, and if we're going to do something and we're always a leader, let's just be a leader and just do it and follow what everybody else is doing. And now's the time. I don't want us to do something 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
Maybe when it might start getting better or picking up. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I did speak with,
Mayor?
oh, yep. Go ahead, is that Lorena?
Yeah.
Ms. Freeze, go
So
ahead.
I agree with Dan. If you're going to do something now, so that way we can hopefully have as much of a quote-unquote normal summer as possible.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I did want to let the council know that I spoke with Pat Wiederholt this afternoon before the meeting. And I just wanted to relay Pat's feedback. He supports all the decisions that are made. He does feel that people the business should be allowed to make their own decisions. So if they feel that they can stay open during the time and they can control the traffic in their businesses, they should be allowed to do that. But he does understand that this is an unusual time and supports whatever decisions are made for the community. So I did have the opportunity to speak with him. I'd also like to suggest to the council that, we are making some hard decisions here. I don't know what is possible, and I don't know that we've even thought to start to investigate this. But maybe this is the time that we as a council can take a look at, are there things that we can do for not only the businesses, but the community? Depending on how this goes, it's gonna be a difficult time. I don't have the answers. I don't even know what's in our realm of possibility to do. And I don't want to start throwing ideas out there to give people false senses of hope. But if financially there are things that we can do by way of whatever we have with utilities or whatever, we may as a council be able to do something that would help lessen the burden a little. So we can take a look at that as a council and see what we can do in times that we have to make hard decisions like this. Because again, this isn't something that is easy, and I'm sure that all of you have been watching the news and doing the same thing. This has been something that I've been struggling with for 2 weeks now. We've made changes here at City Hall, and the first thought was try to control the panic. It's not a panic. I don't like the word closed, because we're not closed. We're still doing business. We're still trying to maintain that sense of normalcy. You still can have a normal life. But with everything that's going on and how things are changing, things are going to be different, and we've stepped things. So instead of going 0 to 100, we've done things like call the office first. Well, now we're going to institute a change where it's going to be a little different when you come into City Hall. You're not going to see station when you come in. You're going to see a desk, and there'll be a place where you can drop things off. If you need immediate assistance, you can call, and it'll be different. It's not going to be the same world. And then if we have to step it up, we might go to another step. But, just completely shutting the door isn't a step that we went to. I'm not saying that we won't have to go there, but we didn't go there immediately. Well, in this situation, unfortunately, it seems like it's went from 0 to 100. So as a council, let's decide what we need to do and move from there. So with that being said, and Mr. Alexander, if you want to go ahead and come on up and address, we haven't heard from you yet, and you're clearly an interested stakeholder in this.
I am for doing something. Timing wise, a guy can debate the time, whether it should be this week or next week or Friday or Thursday next week or whatever. I think we need to do something. From a proactive standpoint, in my businesses, we've been keeping track of the CDC guidelines and trying to keep, actually between you and I, Lorena had a different problem than I usually have, because I'd be tickled to death to get 10 people in the store this time of year. Any year. It is slower than that, so we are capable of steering people out the door. Now, if there's somebody, there is numerous families in Hill City that rely on the laundromats. But this doesn't include convenience stores, but obviously probably for the gas type of a thing, but laundromats, there are people that rely on those. That's their deal. That's something that they do. Car washes aren't really a big deal, but you're not gathering 10 people up to wash your car usually, So, you look at the different things that we do. We've been just cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, and we got bottles. We got 4 different ways that we clean in the convenience stores, inside and outside. 4 different venues that are all happening all at the same time. So we're cleaning clean shit, I swear, But I mean, that's the way that it works. We want to be as participatory in everything is that we can. It's only to my advantage to do that, just as it's some, Puckwana, eastern South Dakota, someplace, or Puckwana, Wyoming, somewhere. It's to their advantage to do this also, so that we can keep that window, that high part of that curve, as flat as possible for as long as possible, so our local health facilities can keep up. And that maybe in the middle of the summer or the early part of the summer, that mention will come around, and we will start having people. Maybe we'll have some medicines by then, or any number of things that can develop on a daily basis, and work it so that we can salvage it. So I think that we can actually, this could end up being a pretty, up until Governor Noem said, talked about another further month into the summer, but I think that it could end up being a pretty good summer. There's a lot of people that are gonna be a lot of pent up, a lot of cabin fever for several weeks that are gonna wanna get out. And if you look at any of the national maps, where would you go? We're looking at 50 million people from the part of the country that you come from. That's where our travelers come from. That 50 million people, we need to get 4 million of them here to have a successful summer. That 50 million people is going to be ready to freaking travel, I can tell you that. And they're going to move to some place where they don't have as many people as they've got there. So that gets us, if we've played our cards right along the way, I think we can still have a successful summer, not just write it off.
Right.
So
Right.
I want to be proactive about it. We're doing that outside, we're following the guidelines outside of Rapid City's deal. Whether it's an ordinance or whether it's all those kinds, you guys can figure all that stuff out. But I think we do need to do something, but, and the timing is always a question, but I would be in support of doing it, and I'm already doing it within my businesses to keep as proactive as I can anyway. And maybe we can maintain that in Hill City. By the way, because she's on there right now and she counseled me like 10 times, it's Lorena. Lorena Freeze. Am I correct, Lorena? Lorena?
Yes, Victor, you are correct.
I just heard Lorena about 5 times today, so I just thought I'd mention it. But anyway, I am for doing something, and I'm on the ambulance. We had an ambulance call, 2 ambulance calls today. I'm on that side of the game too. Mm-hmm. We listen to Dustin. We used to teach Dustin, and now he teaches us. So it's I'm for whatever we need to do to keep everybody ahead of the game, keep that curve flat.
Thank you, Victor.
So we have an extra Monday, maybe we just, obviously this is a discussion item, we could have a special meeting and do something, but maybe we look to just already schedule a meeting for Monday for this topic only.
And that was one of the things that we had talked about,
Mm-hmm.
is really kind of address this on Monday. Get the word out there so people can come. We've got, a small, or participate via phone again, yeah, because we're at capacity right now with 3 folks in the audience. Or if, other folks want to dial in, again, hopefully it's not a bad experience on the phone.
A world of difference.
I would like to ask a lot of the business owners to maybe, if it's just letter form, let us know what their thoughts are, what they would like to see.
One of the interesting things I noted last night that they were doing in Rapid City is they were actually taking emails in as they were having the conversation. So
and maybe we could ask for the chamber's help to reach out to those businesses.
Yeah, and the chamber did shut down for incoming traffic. So I can talk to Janet and see what we can do to set that up. If the council is in agreement, that was actually a recommendation that we had, set up a meeting, a special meeting on Monday to specifically address this. If there were some thoughts that everyone had as a result of today's meeting, we could work with the staff to have them draft. And my recommendation and the thoughts were resolution form. I really think that having this as an ordinance was not really the way to go with something like this. It's an emergency. It's kind of.
It's more of a resolution.
Yeah, a resolution seemed to fit a little bit better. Mr. Alexander?
Is that,
You can draft it so it takes effect right away.
question would be for Brett, is there a reason why, they got quite a few smart people there too. Is there a reason why they went with an ordinance versus a resolution? I don't know, they're, just because they're bigger, I don't know if they got any different rules, but
No,
I just thought I'd run.
Yeah, they're aldermanic form of government, just like we are. They're a first-class community versus our second-class community, and that just has to do with population. I don't know, and I haven't had the opportunity to ask them that question of why they went down that path. That's what they just chose to do.
Yeah.
From the press conference that occurred on Sunday, Mayor Allender said they were still drafting the document.
He did say document.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of pressure and a lot of let's get it out there. That I don't know that there was a whole there are a ton of smart people in Rapid City, a ton of them. But I don't know that given the time constraints
That's why
Because
I
there was no
asked.
discussion of doing this on Friday of last week by Rapid, or even part of Saturday. It evolved overnight,
Literally,
Somehow.
yeah, literally.
and then they were jumping around, so
So
I
I'm like,
I
well, if
don't
we would have known
know
this, we could have had it as an
procedurally.
action item and not a discussion item, yeah.
Okay,
So
And
they might, that document, that might change on Friday. I mean, it's hard to tell, like you say, I think that it was something that happened fast, and
Yeah.
you do most things by ordinance, well, maybe on second hindsight, somebody's already
We could
thinking
just-
that.
Right.
Yeah, if we could just recognize Dustin, and then I think Alderman Peterson has some comments, so, but-
Quinn.
go ahead.
Quinn.
Quinn, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Quinn.
I was just gonna say, a resolution's not enforceable, so it's a suggestion to the community, it's not, if you don't comply, we're gonna fine you. That's the difference between an ordinance and resolution.
Yeah.
One's enforceable, one's not.
So, thanks, Quinn. So our takeaway, for me at least, is I think we probably should schedule that meeting for Monday.
Monday, yep.
Okay, and then in the meantime, how is, figure out a communication piece, how often we can
Yep.
communicate, people can go to, that'd be the chamber.
We've already been, yeah,
With the
we've already been
chamber.
talking about that.
And then, what are the possible outcomes? So is it a total, and I don't even really like the word closure, so
I don't
maybe,
either.
is it a total postponement? Is it a partial postponement? Is it a self-regulated business postponement, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
And how to describe it as a safety closure or whatever,
Yeah.
and go short durations. I think, because this thing's gonna be so fluid that it's gonna change. And I don't know that we can sit here and say it's a 2-month deal.
Right,
It's a 1-month deal. It's a,
Right.
whatever it might be, a 2-week deal that we revise, we will give you an update and for now, and then it could be another 2 weeks, or whatever. So, those are kind of the highlights of what we probably gotta try to figure out.
so were there specific specific types of businesses that you wanted to target? Restaurants and bars?
Well,
was
that's
it-
what I was saying, is it gonna be a total or a partial?
Right.
Partial would be just bars and restaurants and whatever,
Right, so-
specific places. But with Hill City, we're in a unique position that, because we can count them on one hand,
Right,
and we can go in,
right.
for now, anyway.
Right.
I'm being facetious.
No, it's true.
But,
We've
we
got
can actually
three.
get,
3 restaurants.
well, for now, but
Right.
people will wanna be starting to open up and get things going.
April 1st, we've got one, yeah, so, okay.
But my point is it's pretty manageable to talk to the business people, get some communication out to the business people.
Okay,
saying,
so I
yeah,
understand
for
the
input.
process, but do you have any recommendations on timeframes or limitations or anything like that?
Timeframes of,
So when you're talking about,
well, that's what we gotta come up with, is it gonna, what type of closure, whatever we're gonna use
Okay.
for that? Is it a total, is it a partial, is it regulated? Whatever the CDC, whatever the whatever we got coming from them,
Right.
whatever. I think the communication piece is paramount to get that out now. And we can do that through the chamber and say, hey, we need feedback, and we're looking, and so, because really that's what it amounts to, isn't it? If you're talking, I'm not saying what businesses, but you're either gonna go all out, you're gonna go partially, or you're gonna say, you need to be proactive, as we're not gonna tell you what to do, business owners, you need to figure it out.
right?
What other options are there?
No, those are the options, but do you have any passion either way? So you're saying that there's 3 options. Are you driving for one way or the other, or are you
I'm
just
not.
saying they're
I'm
all?
throwing it on the table so that we
Okay.
as a community can drive that.
Okay,
And saying, I'm just dialing it in.
Okay.
Don't say to somebody, hey, what do you think we should do? We should paint the room blue, okay?
right,
Hey, here's 3 options that that are in front of us.
right,
How do you feel about, to these business people? So you either got a total shutdown, total or partial,
Okay.
And that's, people that are congregating 10 or more or whatever,
okay.
or perhaps, self-regulated.
So your suggestion is to have the businesses make that decision?
Not necessarily have their
Okay.
input though, have their
Okay.
buy-in. We're gonna make the decision, but
That's
I'd
right.
I'd
Okay.
like to see.
And we're gonna make the decision next
Yeah.
Monday, correct?
You're asking me a decision right now, Mayor, and I'm saying.
No, I'm just
throwing out-
asking if-
I'm throwing out the bullet points
Okay,
that maybe we need to deal with, and I
Okay.
can't answer the specifics on that.
okay,
but I'm dialing it in, I'm putting parentheses around it.
Okay.
And saying, hey, well, if I were to look at this, there's really only 3 outcomes that we might try to impose, and there might be more, but that's all I see right now.
Okay.
What do you guys see?
What do you think right now, though, Jim?
Well, like I said, I called some people, they're already self-imposing stuff on themselves, and they're doing that. My personal feeling is like I said, maybe we ought to go bold, as I said earlier, right now, and maybe it's making more of a statement saying, this is what Hill City did, when people reflect back on what we did, meaning the tourists, so we don't slam this tourist season. Maybe we just lose our shoulder season a little bit. But that's yet to be determined because the virus is going to tell us what that's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you're saying do something tonight?
We can't. We can't because we didn't set it up to do anything tonight.
Right. We're not
What I'm
in a
saying
position to be
though
able to
is we
actually
can set
act.
it up so that we can, I don't think by next Monday, we can have a lot more input, a lot more information, and we can make a decision next Monday.
Just say for Keystone, that was probably the most important, is we actually had a really good turnout of business owners. So same question to us is what are we proposing? And we kind of said, we want to hear from you what you guys are doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with this issue, everyone has a strong opinion on what to do. So
Absolutely.
for us as a truck board over there I
Okay.
wouldn't have been able to make a decision without listening to those folks.
Yeah, it gives us a week. And that's,
Well,
we streamline it,
So I'm going to throw this out there. Do we want to wait a week, or do we put something out there Wednesday? I mean, these guys pulled it together. This happened yesterday, and they had a meeting today.
We did an emergency meeting.
Yeah. Do we want to wait till Monday, or do we do something Wednesday?
Monday, I don't have any preference either way. Monday was and
Yeah, Monday's an open day, but
that this is gonna evolve.
How many of the local business owners are here in town versus wherever they go for the winter?
the ones that are open are here.
Well, yeah, I know that.
So,
A lot of them aren't going to go till April or May.
But I don't know that,
If there is a good time for it, this time of the year is a good time for it. The only thing is, if it could have been a couple weeks sooner, we would be into knowing what we should have done by now. But it's a good time of the year because we're not really losing anything necessarily. We're not giving anything away that we don't not have anyway. But I think you need to look at it also from a defensive standpoint. We want to save our economy and that sort of thing, and we don't want to burn up the whole summer, but we might burn up the whole next year if we got, because our whole area, if you get that 4 million people in here by July or August, if they do get here and they're coming from all over, from all directions, you're going to, within a couple, 3 weeks after that, whenever that is, you're going to know whether you got it around here again or not.
The business owners that are here and on the phone, would you rather hear something Wednesday or Monday or Friday or, how soon do you want to know something?
what do you think, Lorena?
So I would be game for Wednesday.
Sooner the better.
Sooner the better, I think so. That's what my choice would be, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Oh, we gotta start making plans,
So we will work with.
And I want you all to know that this is the second time that Victor and I have agreed on this thing.
Andy says your name right now, too.
Only the second time.
I know, right?
So, yeah, like I said, I don't have any buy-in on one way or another, but we need to get the information out. We need a little time to do that. And, if Wednesday, it's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me.
Wednesday?
I would just like to see a good, a lot of people, a lot of
A
input.
lot of participation.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
Ultimately, they
will-
It's
can
gonna be-
participate through their chamber and stuff
Sure,
like
yeah,
that.
sure.
That's- Or individually.
Keystone, the rumor was we're shutting down at 3, so we got a real good turnout.
Yeah.
So I know that in yesterday's meeting, and I don't know what happened in Keystone relative to in-person meeting and participation. I did hear when I listened to the simulcast that they were busting at the doors and that there were people in the aisleways and things like that. So we will provide space if people want to come in person to this and also this way. However, people want to attend the meeting right now. It's important that we hear from people, so
But should we
We'll
be
get the
trying
message
to
out.
frame this as what it could be?
Yeah, Rapid Cities.
I mean, you know, in terms of, you know, here's the, like I said, I laid out 3 different things, scenarios. You know, I mean, not to say that they're the all, but I mean, you give people something to think about, right?
yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you.
your total closure, partial closure,
Well, or this is what it could look like.
yeah.
And then there's an infinite number of differences in this both directions. But this is what it could look like. That would be a place to begin.
But
So-
we'll get that feedback and it'll be good, but ultimately it's our choice.
It's gonna be your choice.
And it's gonna be a
So-
choice of safety versus whatever.
So I think from my perspective, and the staff will arrange the meeting, I can get out there, I can talk to Janet, so we can make sure that we drum up participation. Any folks that you and council, as council members, have the opportunity to come across, help them understand what you're looking for. You're looking for their feedback to come up with the decision that you need to make and options that you're looking to put out on the table. And then we can drive that participation in what you need to hear, because ultimately you're gonna need to make the decision.
So what I'm hearing is that meeting on Wednesday would drive the conversation about what the public is interested in, and that would drive then in turn the document.
Well, yeah, that would be an action
Right.
item,
Okay,
yeah, that we could vote on.
okay,
And-
well, don't go there yet.
Okay.
Okay, so we're getting all of these comments. This is a process thing, I'm not
He's looking
judging.
at process,
I'm a
right?
process guy. So we receive all that input. We would have to draft that document at a later time and adopt it at a later time. We couldn't
Do it Friday.
We couldn't draft that document that night.
Sure.
There's too much going on.
Right, but you can draft it proactively before Wednesday on this level
Well,
and go from there and
yeah,
change it up. a little.
we can draft a document that just says, hey, the city of Hill City believes in what the mayor's doing and the governor and the CDC and we support President Trump. And we concur with everything that's going on and as official media release stuff. We could do that. That's the basic. Follow your groups of 10 and your distancing. That's not a problem. We could go all the way up to the hard closure. I mean, there's a lot of room. I appreciate there's 3 different levels, which I agree with in general, but it's a sliding scale of you know, it's either closed or it's open, and there's a slide, you know, somewhere in that spectrum you're going to hit. But we're not going to be able to draft that document on Wednesday
Right.
in a fashion where you guys can vote on it.
Well, we need to
Because
know,
the language is going to be very important depending on where you're at in that spectrum.
we need to know also if, you know, a resolution can get the job done or
Right.
Right.
effectively
So-
enough to get
so,
it done
yeah.
or,
So with that being said, that document would come at a later date, meaning we would have to have another meeting in order to adopt it.
It's not something we can
Yeah,
vote on
Dan,
by
I think
phone.
Dan asked Friday.
Yeah, we could.
We could vote on by phone,
Yeah, you
yeah.
guys can all be on phone. We've got the mechanism. You know,
Right.
Rapid City had adopted some other mechanism where they didn't want people to phone in.
Yep.
They had to repeal that at their meeting yesterday, so that it allowed people to participate by phone.
Yep.
We don't have that in place.
Right, so we
So
can.
all of you could be at home participating. And I think, you know, we may want to encourage that a lot for whatever meeting, whether it's Monday or Wednesday or whatever, that we're getting emails, we're getting, you know, dial in, whatever, to communicate, and we go through the list. But I'm just, from a process perspective, whatever the sediment is that comes out of that meeting, we're gonna need a day to draft it, get it, another meeting scheduled so you can adopt it. So,
what'd you guys do today? Did you adopt something?
We just adopted a resolution that Keystone recognizes the guidelines, encourages our residents' business to follow them, and the governor's executive order. So we're just on record as being a town that's following the guidelines and the governor's direction.
Well,
So here's another,
we could do that, could we do that tonight?
I
so
can do
I mean,
that.
here's another
That's like the
Here's
bare
another
minimum,
option.
right?
So,
here's another option. The mayor could just do a proclamation that essentially says exactly what they did. It's just coming from the mayor's office of saying, you know, we're a community, we need to, or whatever. That could go out tonight if it
I
was
think that
drafted.
would be appropriate.
Yeah.
and then we
So-
can still do the resolution.
So that would go out and it would
If you
meet,
want to tighten it up.
Yeah.
it would meet that first step, kind
Right.
of, you know, of
So
the
that
spectrum.
would serve the resolution that they did, knowing that we're gonna have the conversation on.
Right, because you're not taking any official action other than you're saying that our entity, our organization recognizes that these are good best practices to keep safe.
So I'd say that would be a good first step for at least tonight, so we can get that out.
Yep.
And it follows what these sister communities are doing, and then if we think we need to tighten it up, then that's what this next meeting's for. huh?
Yep, exactly.
By then,
Mayor.
you know, really, it wouldn't
Hang on a
take-
second on the phone.
It
We've got
wouldn't-
Mr. Alexander speaking.
Wouldn't take, really, I don't know how it could take a day, 'cause I can memorize this in one day.
But,
But if a guy did have this after a proclamation tonight, and we had samples of this with Hill City written into it, that would be at the meeting on Wednesday, it could be a place to begin. It could either be tighter than this, or it could be slacker than this. This is kind of in the middle, actually, anyway. You know, so if you had that much of it already done, you save
We're not
some
talking
time.
about this, though. What do you have in your hand, the Rapid
he's
City
got,
thing?
he's got the Rapid City one.
That's not
The
what we're
Rap-
talking about tonight.
Yeah, but so,
I'm just saying, if you talked about that, that would be something that could be presented in a rough form already on Wednesday.
I got
So
you.
the thing
So-
can be done by Friday,
so,
you know.
so Mr. Alexander, this would be complete shutdown. That's what this is. This isn't the
Oh, no, it
in-between.
says convenience stores stay open.
Well,
I'm being facetious, I'm just saying, a complete shutdown shuts down
yeah,
hardware
Are you
stores
talking
and
about
grocery
Rapid City?
stores.
yeah,
and-
I'm talking about
It's
the,
not a
it's-
complete shutdown.
well,
This is kind of right about in the middle,
There's-
actually, when
there's
you look
plenty.
at it.
yeah,
You look how much can continue on, all construction can continue on.
Yeah.
yeah.
All different
Okay,
warehouses.
okay.
Yeah.
This is a really minor type thing, it's just it's the big group type of thing. a
It's
big
minor
group of
unless you
people
own a
type
restaurant,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, I agree with you 100%, but
So-
I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
but
So
at that
use,
point,
so
we're,
use the Rapid City document as your starting point, as your template,
that's what I'm trying
and
to
move,
say.
and move north or south of it.
Exactly.
That's fine. I'm just saying, I don't literally need a day to work on stuff. I could be an hour.
Right.
Yeah, but
That's not the point of
point.
contention. The point of
Is-
contention is whatever the language that the
Comes
council
out of it,
wants to put
Right.
into that document
Has
is
to-
reflective of our community.
Mhm.
We just need a little bit of time to put it in
To
that,
put it in a
that
document,
thing,
right.
and then have another opportunity at a later time
It
to
just
adopt
has to be made Hill City specific.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Exactly, yes.
So, right, so how we do that process-wise, I think what we need is, and unfortunately, because it rolled out the way it did, so here's the gap. This would have not been a discussion item had we have had advance notice that Rapid City was gonna do this in what they did on Sunday night. We didn't know that. So when this rolled out on Sunday night, we couldn't change the agenda because it was already published on Friday. Had we have known, this would have been an action item and we'd be in a different spot. So that's why.
But if you're gonna have a special meeting, you're gonna get there before they do anyway.
Well, so that's
if you-
why we're kind of behind a meeting, right? So what we're,
Be done by Friday and they'll just be finishing up.
right, so,
There.
well,
So that's the way I look at it.
we won't, but yeah,
Should be,
so
could
we'll
be.
have our Wednesday meeting and then we'll determine at that meeting when we'll have the phone-in meeting for the council to vote to put it in effect. Okay, so it appears that we have a way that we're gonna be able to move forward with this. I will proceed with the resolution. It's 7:30, so is it really
Proclamation.
realistic? I'll do a proclamation,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So if not tonight, first thing tomorrow morning, it will go out that we're in support of the CDC guidelines and we're marching in the same steps as our sister communities.
Governor.
Well, our sister communities so it'll,
I think you guys said CDC, the governor level.
right, exactly. We'll
And
take
what
care of
else
the
did you
wording.
say?
It was the governor's executive order, the CDC guidelines, and in the executive order, bars and restaurants are mentioned unless they can comply with the 6.
Seemed like there was a third one.
Yeah, I'm referencing the fact that we're working with the other communities, our sister communities, and all marching in the same direction. So we're there. We'll schedule a special meeting on Wednesday to discuss this, make sure that it gets communicated out. Okay, so I believe we have a path forward with that. Any other discussion or conversation? Thank you all for your input.
Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Minor.
Mayor, are we gonna wait for the library board's recommendation, or are we just gonna make a decision for the library?
So I don't know if we can legally make a decision for the library since they truly fall under state jurisdiction.
Who's building?
They already sent out, they were gonna be closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did tell us that they're officially closing at the end of the month. But it is our building, but they fall under the guidelines of the state and not the city. So,
Just asking the question.
okay. Okay,
Does this change any of the stuff with the election? Yes,
No,
okay.
no,
Nothing state, city, county?
Nope.
No, okay.
so just to reference that, we had some discussion on that, and the way, I'll cover it in my report out, so we'll get through that, and Stacia's gonna cover that herself, so I'm not gonna speak for her. So, nothing else on discussion items. I'm gonna close discussion items. I'm gonna go into report items. Let's start with Common Council. Let's start with Alderman Minor on the phone. Do you have any report items?
oh, no, we need to go back to,
Well, let's back up.
Oh, that's right, we need to go to 7C.
Item 7C.
Yep, thank you for bringing me back to reality. Action item 7C, approval of the special event application for Run for the Rangers. So,
Make a motion to table that till Wednesday's meeting.
okay, so we have a motion to table that until our special meeting on Wednesday.
Second.
I have a second.
Second.
We already have a second from Alderman Jarvis. So we have a motion, Alderman Peterson, second Alderman Jarvis. Roll call, please.
Steve Jarvis,
Yes.
Bill Minor,
Yes.
Jim Peterson,
Yes.
John
Yes.
Johnson.
Okay, all in favor? Action item tabled. Report items, Common Council, Alderman Minor, you have the floor.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Nothing.
Alderman Johnson.
Went to the library meeting after our financial meeting the other night. I was a little late, but I didn't miss much. Typical, go over the finances. They did give Tammy a $200 limit without permission to spend. And hiring a new aide for the summer program. Then the ambulance meeting was the next night, their annual meeting. They've had 60 calls to date. Went over their budget, elected officers. The next night was the fire department's annual meeting. They went over their budget, elected officers. They've had 169 runs so far this year with 4.5 people there. So you must have been to half one.
Well, that's a little clarification to that, that's an average of, so some of them show up with 12, and a lot of them are maybe a Helio call, and there'll be 2 or 3 of us on the street that can check that out, and it'll only be 1 or 2, but the average is 5. Typically on some kind of a structure fire or a bad accident, we'll have 10 or 12, pretty much all the time.
Of course, I guess it was email about the library closing.
Okay. Okay. Alderman Jarvis.
Nothing.
Okay, I will be very short. Just wanted to advise the council on activities that we had done in preparation and all the conversations about COVID. So you will notice some changes that we've made. We've talked about all of the operational impacts from this. We will be moving Betsy from the front. We're going to be cordoning it off in the front, so it will be available for people to drop things off. We don't like the word closed either. I agree with Alderman Peterson. It's too strong of a word. There are people still here functioning. We are focusing on essential items and things that need to get done. We've looked at our spend. There's nothing that's on the docket from a spend perspective, so we're going to be watching that very closely. We are having regular conversations with the staff. We are making a decision relative to closing of the restrooms. We're going to talk to Travis to make sure that he's in the loop with regard to that. Closing the parks might be a little bit more difficult. I'm not sure exactly how we would do that, but again, want to loop them in on it. They're still continuing to do their regular things. Stacia's going to update you on some of the operational decisions that she's made. That's within her authority, and that's really been our focus for the last couple of weeks. We are probably going to look to make decisions that would do things like the mayor's meeting. I'm really hedging on canceling that since I'm thinking that's going to be the path that's going to happen. We were planning on having a ribbon cutting on May 1st. Haven't pulled the plug on that yet as far as rescheduling, but that'll probably come up in the future too. I have also been staying in contact with Crowell's Market, the Senior Center, all of those individual organizations to make sure we keep the community plugged in. Also with the EDC as well as Janet at the Chamber to make sure that if there are any available things like small business loans and things like that, that's communicated out because I know this is going to be a rough time for our businesses. I'm done. Let's go to Stacia.
Well, we hit on it just a little bit. The election, so far, nothing has changed regarding any of that aspect of it. The only thing we will be communicating out to the public is to vote via mail. Get your applications in for your absentee ballots so that you can vote by mail sooner rather than later. That's one of the things they suggested to us. Otherwise, in the finance office with our UB, our team got together, we talked about it. We're not going to be doing any water shutoffs to any of our delinquent accounts. We're also going to suspend our late fees through this time period. We are working with all of our people that are on our delinquent list to try to get some form of payment through, but where they're still feeling comfortable with any closures that they might have through their work. So otherwise, we're just working as always.
What about petition turn?
It hasn't changed.
Okay.
It's still March 30th at 5 o'clock.
What hadn't changed?
Petition turn.
Petition.
Okay. Thank you.
And Brett.
If I can just add on to the end of that, there was a discussion that we had today as well with Betsy. You know, she's handles a lot of the payment stuff for the water sewer bills, just to reduce traffic within City Hall to protect the public and to protect our employees here. We're just encouraging people to call if they've got business with us, to talk to us over the phone. We can probably address most things. With payments, we've got online bill pay. We've got the automated bill pay that was set up that Stacia worked on and put into place. So that's available. There's just I think there's just another application form that needs to be filled out to pursue that so that it can be an automated thing. Also, Betsy's identified some people that typically pay with cash. And she's going to do some outreach to them to say, hey, look, let's figure out a system. You don't have to come in. We'll figure it out with the cash and just post it to your account, whatnot, so that it's limiting their exposure. Because a lot of them are in that age category of 60 plus, that, you know, it's just good to get in the habit now than later of getting, you know, the less places you travel, the less likely you're going to catch anything. So we're working on that as well. But you'll see some, like the mayor said, you'll see some modifications to how we do business at City Hall, but we are definitely open to help people out. Okay. So on my items, the Main Street Sidewalk Project, we had a coordination meeting with Complete Concrete this morning and DOT. They're ready to ramp up. You might have seen them downtown jackhammering and removing concrete. I didn't get down there today because I was busy with other things, but they're going to be ramping up their construction cycle. We talked about kind of what they're going to be doing to try to take care of the recommended CDC stuff within their own employees, which is hard because they're all over each other trying to work and put in rebar and remove and run in equipment, but also how it relates to them working with DOT staff and all of them working with the public And so they're following social distancing as they do their work and whatnot. So a lot of good discussion there. One question that was a really good question that came up was, right now, their next step is to remove that upper sidewalk in front of the Harley Davidson shop. They're going to leave access for things at Rock and Just Dandy and any business that's open. But one of the questions that came up was, if we remove concrete, are we guaranteed and know that we can still get fresh concrete in and poured? And so they're going to work and make sure that that's going to be available, that that's not going to get shut down at some point. Because we don't want to tear something out if we don't have to, where we have nothing to put back. Because then you've got an uneven surface, and I don't know that you want to put plywood down. It would just be a mess. You'd be better off just leaving it alone. So we're looking at that, probably get an answer on that tomorrow. So they're progressing with a smaller crew right now, and then they'll ramp up that crew by the end of this week and into next week. I think it's supposed to be like in the 50s next week consistently from the weather report that I saw about. So that's that. The business improvement project, we're still working on the finishing touches for the architectural plan and the bid documents. And we have not set the specific dates for the bid letting and that process to go through. And so we're working on that. And then Kale is turning around the other alley documents with essentially the same process of the document dates and whatnot. Kale is actually, so that's where those projects are. Actually, Kale has been working more so on the water reservoir project. This past week, he completed, there's an engineering document that has the agreement that has to be signed with the engineer that's doing all of the drawings. That has to be updated, and so he went through and updated all of that. He finished that on Friday. And then contained within that same packet is the bid document, the actual bid document information, and he completed that on Friday as well. He was going to forward that to Rural Development either on Friday or first thing today, and I did not get a chance to talk to him to confirm that, but he is finished with his part of it. So it's going back to Rural Development for their hopefully final review and blessing. And then obviously the crossing, I will contact the company and coordinate with Mike at the train for all of the supplies, make sure they've got everything on hand so that there's no surprises so that we can get in there. So please do your nice, dry, no rain dance. Because if we get rain, it will be a mess. So we need some decent weather to work on it. Major Lake Bridge project, ever since this whole virus thing has kind of ramped up, it's been difficult to work with different agencies because they're all focused on the response to this, and they're not only their internal response to it to protect their own employees, but external. So I have not heard anything new on the Major Lake Bridge project. That's one of my goals this week is to check and see where that application is on that end. I did talk to the state transportation person, and I don't know if that was Friday. I can't remember. But it's looking good on their end. We're just waiting for the Forest Service piece of it. So, I guess the only other thing, we had the equalization meeting last Monday, right? Meeting went well. Those documents, there's a lot of work that goes into all of these things. Every time we have a public meeting, there's minutes, there's agendas, there's like a stack of paperwork, triplicate copies, this, that, and the other thing. So thank you, Stacia. She pulled all of that together. I dropped it off at the county, signed a little book, so we're officially have everything in there. Stacia still has more work to do because she'll send out letter to those people that contested their assessments. So whoever contested it will get that in the mail, and so it's quite a process. There's a lot of paperwork on the back end, a lot of fine thread tying off kind of stuff. So thank you, Stacia. She's been working like crazy, and always has, but it seems like even more so over the past week or two. So anyway, that's all I have, I think.
All right, no further business, meeting adjourned.